sorry has never paid my bills and it has never paid any debt. Let's talk about reparations. Welcome to Curriculum Conversations with your girl, Lavinia Stennett, and today we're going to be discussing reparations, but also in the context of Jamaica. So obviously, for many years, even before we had, UN motions on whether the trafficking of enslaved Africans was the gravest crime in humanity, way before that, we've had activist community members, religious members of the public come together to actually champion reparations. And at the heart of that is the theme of repair. We've got a whole film about reparations, which is called Omitted, which you should go and see, which is available online. But essentially, we're looking at the theme of repairing. We're repairing an injustice that was done to our people, right? And that was not just a one-off episode. It was done over and over and over again, over hundreds of years. Many of us already know the story of enslavement, but it goes deeper than that because it's about the current day effects of that process, which essentially was the trafficking of millions of people, documented and undocumented, from the coastlines of Africa all the way to the Caribbean and beyond. And many of us are the recipients of that forced migration. And so when we're thinking about Jamaica's role in shaping reparations and what that looks like, in 2009, Jamaica was actually one of the first Caribbean countries to set up the National Commission for Reparations, and then also have been large advocates of CARICOM and the 10-point plan that CARICOM has. In 2015, I don't know if some of you remember this, but the then Prime Minister, David Cameron, was in Jamaica and he was like, we can't actually issue like an apology. We're not sorry. Because sorry opens up conversations about directly taking accountability for what was done. And similarly, Western countries do not want to accept accountability because they know that in doing so, we will be asking for more, right? And in asking for more, it's not things that we are not due. These are things that we are due. But we cannot just take sorry, right? And I think the first thing is, yes, we owe an apology, but over and above that, an apology has to lead to something. It has to lead to accountability. It has to lead to ongoing relations. It has to lead to audits. It has to lead to all these other things that we need to start preparing for, because the time is coming that many Western countries are going to have to start thinking about and putting into action what is due. And so when we're thinking about Jamaicans and the history and the contribution to the topic of reparations, we cannot miss out our very own Vereen Shepherd, who has been championing from within the UN and also outside of that conversations around what Black people in the UK as well as across the diaspora need to be able to think about before we even get reparations. So that's why education and Black curriculum is so vital to this movement, and many other people who are also working towards advancing reparatory justice. And then also, furthermore, when I think about our states and who is, going to be responsible for allowing the reparations to go through, and we're thinking about, like, let's say for example we're focusing on the state, right? And let's say that it's money flowing through the state. We need to have systems in place. We need to have systems of trust, of accountability, of like openness, right? Because reparations, yes, it's money and we need all of those things for that, but then there's also the part within us and ourselves of healing, of dialogue, of just having things that work for us, from mass culture to like interpersonal relationships. And I think it's time that we actually start thinking about that. So Jamaica's role in this is very integral, and big up all the other Caribbean countries that have been working towards it, especially Barbados, with people like Sir Hilary Beckles and none other but Mia Motley. But there are so many other things that we need to start thinking about, because we can't just wait on governments to do this. We have to do it for ourselves. We have to promote reparations between ourselves before we actually depend on others. So it's not a question of feasibility. It's actually a question of when. And my when is now. So we need to start teaching that today. This is Curriculum Conversations with your host, Lavinia Stennett, and we've just discussed reparations. So stay tuned for the next episode.